find your first agent?
When I got to LA, I sent out 200 photographs. I went to Screen Actors Guild, and I got a list of all the franchise agents, and I sent out 200 photographs. I got 5 calls. 4 of them said I needed to change my name and fix my teeth. One guy told me to come in. I went to his office, a very small office, very sweet man. And he looked at me, says, "Hey, yeah, you got a nice picture." He said, "Bring me 20 pictures and 20 resumes." You know, my resume was like, half of it was made up. And he said, "Bring me 20 pictures and 20 resumes and tomorrow, and we'll send you out, see what happens." So I brought him 20 pictures, 20 resumes. And he says, and he started stamping his name on my resume, like with a stamp. Boom, boom, boom. And he was a very sweet man. He got me no auditions, but he was very sweet. And nothing against him, he would just send stuff out. He had no pull or anything.
So he released you.
No, he didn't release me. But he didn't even sign me. It was just like, we'll see what happens. He invested in my life for the 18 cents every time he would invest, send that out there. There was no real pull, you got to see this kid. This kid is fantastic. It was nothing like that. It was just another movie. And so, but, so I really, for the first 7 years of my life in LA, I had really no representation. I struggled to, I was studying very hard. I was going to class. I was doing theater. I was doing a lot of improvisational theater in all the local cabarets. I was working as a waiter, as a mover, as a roofer, as a
Carpenter.
no, not as a carpenter. But I was working on my craft, and once every 6 months, I'd get this bizarre call about, "You have an audition," and who you are who, and you are, I'm your agent. Oh, okay. And then I go to the audition, and be all pumped up, and the lady. I remember one audition was for a movie about Mexican gang members. It was called Boulevard Nights or something like that. One of those movies that they were for some reason in the 70s they focused on. There was a handful of these movies that were about sort of West Side Story set in East LA or something. And I went in there, and the woman, I walked in, and the woman looked at me like if I was an alien. And she went like that, and she started searching for my picture. And she picked it up and went like this, and she looked at my picture and looked at me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I'm going, "You called me in." And he says, "But you're not Mexican?" And I go, "No, but..." He goes, "Oh, no, we're looking for real Mexican gang members." And I said, "Well, I'm an actor. I can play a Mexican gang member." He says, "No, you can't." And in the waiting room, there was real gang members out there. It's like I walked in there. I thought I was, it was like there was real. They had brought in real guys that were could have been great actors, but I was. So I wasn't even typecast when I was I was being stereotyped even when I couldn't. I had no shot. I couldn't get an opportunity here, and I couldn't get stereotyped. I was lost in the shuffle. So it was very difficult. I'm not trying to think, but it was very difficult for me to kind of get going. It really was. It really was. So but that's the nature of it, I guess. It's not an easy profession, and somehow you get the strength to say, I got nowhere else to go, and I'm gonna stick with it. And eventually, I would, little by little, there was some lady saw me on stage and gave me a part in Hill Street Blues, and then an agent finally said, "No, I think maybe you can," and that one helped me out a little bit. And then, it was just like a process of impressions that I made. And they weren't in the audition process so much early on because I didn't have any audition processes. It was really mostly on stage by fellow actors. There were people that were on stage. Betty Thomas, who was working with me in an improv group at the Comedy Store, who was a member of Second City, who's now as a director, got cast in the show Hill Street Blues, and he said, "Mike, the casting director Molly LaPata is coming in. I've talked to her about you. You should be able to do something on our show because, you'd be perfect. She came to see her on stage at the Comedy Store. I was there. She called me in, and I got a little part. The opening scene of the pilot is me screaming at somebody. And then they used me like 4 other times in the show. I think they killed me twice. But, little things, it was just very, snail's pace. But my father always said to me, never take a step backward, not even to gain momentum. And that's what kept me alive. Just little, I don't know, a stubbornness to get through it all somehow. Because sometimes it was very painful, it was very, it was tough. Because I had no structure here, I had no family, I had friends, but friends that I developed here, but I was basically alone out here. So there were very dark times. I can't say that. I wish I had the wisdom to have enjoyed them more. Saying, "Oh, you mean this is all going to work out?" I wish I had that wisdom, but I didn't. But I did have the desire and nowhere else to go.